Might shoot him a message on Messenger. These are way too much hardware.
Can you guys hear me? Yeah, I just had to switch computers. I was having a little trouble, but we're good.
Yeah, Gross is here. Um, we can. I mean, we can just do it like we've done. Like when he comes in, we just drop it into segment. Stuff doesn't have to go in order. Um, so we can jump into the news. I suggest we jump into the news, but skip the other dirt thing as well, and do that with Evans because it kind of flows. They kind of go together. You know what I'm saying? So jump to the third news item, I guess. Yeah, that won't be that long. That won't be like reviewing an entire race. We're gonna say we came in third. That's about it. Okay. Yep. All right. And I'm not going the rest of the way down on assigning topics. I've gone down to Waverly. If we get past that, I'll start assigning again. No, I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm here.
I don't think we'll get that far, dude. But I don't. So I don't want to have them assigned for next week. I guess. I don't know. Trust me, I did. I already did like 20 hardware items. There's too many hardware items.
Hey guys, how you doing? Good to be back.
Do we really get to call Brian usual yet?
Evening, gentlemen.
Well, it went off a lot better than Le Mans did. I can definitely tell you that. In fact, our group had a really good run. Me and Tom got together with our Elite West teammate Richie Hearn, and also recruited a couple of guys that I race a lot with in Le Mans series, Douglas Cloud and David Burgess. We had put together a 5-man team, so we didn't have to really stretch anybody's schedule. Picked the car. Doug had an idea of which car felt the best to him. We ended up with running with that one. Turned out it had a really good fuel mileage too. We were getting 27 laps to everybody's 24, and that literally saves 2 pit stops over 24 hours. And even with a couple of pit road mistakes by one of the team members, we had a third place finish. It was exciting and mostly clean. Yeah, we were only about a minute behind the second place guy when we finished. So the it wasn't me, but the fella had an unsafe pit entry and a speeding because the for some reason the pit limiter didn't kick in. So it did well. We actually called the team Tifosi Plus. It's kind of a homage to the service formerly known as Google Plus. I guess we could. I guess there's Disney Plus now, isn't there? Yeah, and he had the fastest lap, obviously. Um, we were all very consistent. That was what was really good about it. All of us just kept it on the track. You know that any of the 24-hour races, that's one of the most important things. But Richie had an insanely fast lap compared to anybody else. He was popping 19s off left and right, and actually, he had the fastest McLaren time of any McLaren in all splits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that link was deleted a few days later, I think. So I went to look at it myself, and it had been deleted already.
Now we did talk about. I think last time we talked about they did a test to see if the longer registration would open. That seemed to go pretty well. Uh, Tom registered us and made sure we got in. Everything ran pretty smoothly. Um, and then we also have a couple of links here showing off some pictures featuring the HDR effect with the sun in your eyes, which I don't see because we have that turned off in VR.
I actually I have that. I do run HDR on my VR system, and you can. There's some times when the sun is set low, where you are completely blind going around a turn or something like that. It's always really bad in California on the back straight, but you can barely see a thing. It's so bright and so blinding, which it's kind of realistic that way. And I understand why somebody might not want to run it because it can be seriously it can be dangerous.
So we also have some stats here for you, posted by Rob Crouch. I'm taking a quick glance to see if this stats at the top are actually the overall, and I think they are. This includes all three different start times, I believe. There was, getting back to the top, 1,677 teams total, 5.8 thousand drivers. 500, almost 600 of the teams drove the Ferrari, and another 450 drove the BMW. Interestingly, only 39 teams drove the McLaren, and we were one of those 39. And only 11 drove the Ford.
Huge numbers. That's really cool.
Yeah, and the top split uh, on one of the splits or on one of the start times was 2382. That's not very high, but the way the splits get set, we talked about it last time in our race. Though the lower I rating guy did actually get in the car, we had immediately somebody show up in our split with a 7,000 I rating. Just start popping laps off in practice. So that if that's the case, we should be in there somewhere. Did not make the cleanest drivers list.
Yeah, this I guess F5 Motorsports will be broadcasting the second split NIS races for the rest of the season. They're doing that on Facebook, so just look up F5 Motorsports on Facebook. Um, I don't understand. Second split is I don't understand if it was top split, and then I also get like the bottom split guys because that's just pure comedy for the most part. Um, they must have F5 Motorsports must have a few guys running the second split. Is that the deal, or do you guys even know? Okay, yeah, that makes sense then. Okay, and yeah, speaking of bottom split, are those guys still doing it? I haven't heard nothing, and I don't know if they started the season out and then faded off. I thought I heard them kind of poking their heads up, but those guys were funny.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye out for you there, Mike. I guess everything's fixed and ready to go.
It's very slick right now.
This track is a lot smaller than I thought it was, now that I can see everything.
I wonder how they get their submissions for that.
This isn't the first group to do this either, because I've been in one of these, but it was, I guess, made by somebody else.
I got to tell you, I was very entertained watching this. Some of them were very funny. The second one, where the guy spins out at the launch of his formula race, he just spins out, and they dub it with some sad music with a sullen look on the guy's face. It was pretty amusing. Even the very first one was funny too, where the guy was he had a spotter in his ear, and he came around the corner, and there was a car stopped on the track, and the spotter didn't give him a heads up, and he kind of berates him a little bit about the jobs of a spotter. It was funny too. Yeah, I hope they keep that up. It was entertaining. Yeah, man. Dirt fans out there, hope you guys are happy because there's a new track in process. It's a Weed Sport Park. It is a 3/8 mile dirt track. The actual track is located in Cayuga in Weedsport, New York, and that's going to be the next track coming out. And they show some pictures of it on the forums, and it's in process, getting ready to come out. So, dirt fans, looking forward to a new track. That's right, and that's the next thing we're going to get to, right? Big back block modifieds are being scanned, so that looks like they will be coming next. Sure, and it's obviously they're anticipating what the fans want when they release certain content that goes along with what they're releasing. Yeah, I think Wheat Sport, the track itself, might be ready, considering how fast they release stuff like on uh, on the oval at what's the track they just did recently, real quick. It's just slipped my mind.
Well, they redid Kentucky, but it wasn't quite finished. If you're talking about that one. Yep. Brian, are you asking about Wilkesboro?
That's correct. That's what I was thinking. North Wilkesboro.
Well, we're talking about how they tend to keep their nose to the ground, and it's interesting that they can do that because there's got to be so much that they get slammed with all the time from every other direction. But they also try to keep an eye on the servers, and they run into some connectivity issues recently. It looks like on July 10th. It had to do with some of the server farms, and they swapped over to a different server farm, and that seemed to knock out the issues. And this happened a few days before the 24, but then that didn't have any problems with the 24, so it ran okay. I seem to remember that I might have been in a race where this started happening, and everybody just started getting kicked out. Like everybody's quality went, everybody was blinking, and then you just see dropped for unacceptable connection, and you'd get back in for 2 minutes, and then everybody would get dropped again. And I ended up it ended up still counting as an official race.
Happy to be here, guys. Hope everybody enjoyed tuning in on Tuesday night. I know it was a bit of a messy one at times, but still some exciting moments as always. Yeah, we talked a couple of rounds back when there was kind of no NASCAR happening at all about the increased viewership, and I think it's come back. And I don't think we're getting the 300 thousands that we were at that point, but I think we're still up from what we got last year. And you mentioned, I mean, even iRacing, getting some of those more kind of promo things out. NASCAR's been doing that. I saw that a lot of the teams were. So it's been good. It's fun to see everybody get involved. And admittedly, I'm not a huge fan of New Hampshire, and I was actually joking with our crew before the broadcast that maybe that's just because I can't drive there, and that's why. It's a tough track, and we learned that real quickly as we continue to work deeper and deeper into the year here. Yeah. Yeah, you're going to get that at these tracks with a lot of braking. Obviously it wasn't the kind of intermediate package that we kind of refer to when we talk about the current package and the way this all works, because it was one of the smaller tracks. But for a majority of the tracks on the calendar, you're really not braking. That's kind of not required in this kind of day and age of cup car racing. So a lot of drivers were, saying, listen, I don't know if I'm going to do that good. We saw a lot of, guys who are consistently top 10 guys who, you kind of get out of that rhythm for a little bit, and they thought that this track was going to be tough for them. And I'm not surprised that we got an early yellow. We knew and acknowledged on the broadcast. I think the average yellows for New Hampshire, all time in this series is like at about 11 or so. So we knew it was going to kind of be gross, and you just some bumper cars early. But you mentioned Busa up front. I mean, I thought he did a really good job. I thought he was kind of in a prime position to try to go back to victory lane, obviously, for the first time since he got his first win at Atlanta 2 years ago. So that was a big storyline. And Graham Boland was super impressive leading that opening bit. He kind of struggled, maybe about 40 on, but it was good to see some, I don't want to say new faces up there because these guys are really good, but maybe some different faces compared to the last couple of weeks. Yeah, we saw. I think it was pretty consistently. Maybe your top three, four would kind of break away early, and everybody else would stay side by side. And it was kind of good because it wasn't, for the way that New Hampshire is, it wasn't just like 110% a single groove. I mean, cars on the outside could make those passes happen sometimes. Cars on the inside. I mean, there was a lot of leaning on each other. A lot of the time, actually, and I think we mentioned it, is on the radio, drivers were kind of very understanding. I think they knew that in close quarters like New Hampshire, there was going to be contact. So for most of the incidents, and you mentioned that little bit of contact for that second yellow where it really wasn't a wreck, but it triggered one. We're always listening to the driver chat, and a lot of the drivers were like very, it's fine. I didn't mean to get into you. That changed in about the final quarter of the race, but at least off of the get go, drivers seemed to be willing to kind of balance that give and take as best as they could. Yeah, you talk about kind of veterans in this series, and John Gorlinski is somebody who obviously has been around for a long time, and he's kind of been. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it because obviously with the teams this year, we've been talking a good bit about William Byron Esports and whatnot, but it's kind of been mainly for John and not really for his teammates. So we were kind of looking to see if we could get a little bit more. Out of that driver duo, if you will, it was Ottinger actually, sorry, who we've been talking most about. And I mentioned, you talk about Gorlinski. It was good to see him back up in that picture because we finally got a team points graphic. So that was kind of on our mind. And it's good to see, again, just because of the way that these teams came together, Gorlinski, who's kind of been the number 2 at that team all year, do pretty good. And he's kind of stringing together a couple of good weeks here. And I don't want to say he's on the playoff bubble quite yet, but just a couple more consistent finishes like that, and I think we could have a real good look at maybe getting rid of some of that early season bad luck. Still looking for a first top 5, but he's got a couple of top 10s now. It has not been a fun ride for Chris, and we kind of see this. I mean, this isn't just a 2020 thing for Chris. I mean, he's consistently a guy who's in this championship, and obviously decided to stay with the Wood brothers with last year. And it's funny because he has such a bad. I don't want to say a bad race, but I mean it wasn't great for him. But he's able to bounce back. I think he finished kind of like mid pack, and he actually gained a bit in the points. So it could be worse, but that's kind of Chris's season. Is a good night is where there's a wreck and you recover to like 20th or wherever he was. I mean, that's kind of his standard for a good week. And I know we see drivers, even Schoenberg and some of those other guys who have been in this series for so long, have top 15, have top 10 cars, and it seems like so consistently they just can't get those results, and it's got to be tough. Yeah, that was, a yellow that shouldn't have been a yellow, but I mean, that's just another incredible job of saving that race car. We've seen, several instances now this year, and I think looking back, it was to Vegas. I saw some clips around on Twitter after the race, that save kind of reminded people of where I mean, he's got great car control, and it's just kind of a finicky thing with the iRacing system kind of automatically triggers out of the yellow flag. We should have stayed green. But I mean, it starts the same way a lot of those early race wrecks that you were talking about started, where you just got checking up. You talk about the Haas cars getting into each other. That's kind of like the cardinal rule that I mentioned is don't get into your teammate. Granted, they weren't overdriving and kind of being dumb about it. They just happened to be nose to tail when there was a checkup. But Blake Reynolds is going to continue to give us save of the years, every couple of races, it seems like. I feel like if we did an end of the season, kind of awards thing, he'd have a couple of them. So it was a good job by him to keep on control of that car. And not the first time. I think he has to have the most memorable saves in this series that at least I can remember for the last couple of years. Yeah, and Zach is a guy who obviously is nowhere near happy with what he's seen out of the car this year, and kind of messed up the fact that we actually finished this race with 39 of the 40 cars that started. I mean, on the lead lap. But yeah, Zach, I don't think he qualified. I think he may have been one of those drivers that was hit with the qualifying conduct kind of scrutiny thing that may have disallowed his lap time, or he hit the fence or whatever it was. But I don't remember exactly where the bubble was, but there was a handful of fast cars that didn't qualify at the back. Zach drives his way all the way up to the field after being, so kind of, I don't want to say subpar, but as a defending champ, you expect to start up front and kind of stay there. And he kind of showed a little bit of that brilliance. And as we'll find out in a couple of laps, unfortunately, that didn't really last for him. Yeah, and this is what I was alluding to earlier when I mentioned that, a lot of the drivers at the beginning of the race were, pretty understanding on the radio, because I have this in my ear the whole time. So I'm trying not to laugh actually on the broadcast, because Zach and Luz are just, going at each other. Novak's not all the way in the fence yet. And he's already saying, thanks, really. And then Luz is like, I'm not trying to run you over, man, but you got to go. And they're kind of yelling back and forth. And of course, it was the big one because it happened pretty quickly off of a restart there. So not only was it Luz and Novak, but you had guys like Guest and Davies and, some of the other guys. Nathan Lyon, I think, was involved in that incident as well. Big mess. And that's kind of, I think, where the race kind of flipped the switch. And we went from, we're trying to get everybody to the end of the race to, all right, we're going to fight for every single spot. And I'm just checking back on the results now. Yeah. Zach finishes 30th, or 30 seconds. We actually finished worse than where he started, which, of course, if we're talking about that 50 laps to go, the way that he's probably one of the best cars in traffic, that's pretty cruddy for him. And taking a look at the points, not to kind of get too ahead of ourselves, but that costs him 3. He's that much lower now in the points, 24th, and obviously that top 20 is the cut. So that's a big blow to Zach. I don't want to say that that's the blow that takes him out of playoff contention. It was obviously a bit of a stretch, coming into the night to begin with, but you can't afford to be behind by, I'm looking like 100 points at the playoff bubble, and you can't have one bad race like that, because we're counting down, there's only 6 left in the regular season. I don't think Zach Novak makes the playoffs this year, which is something that if you had told me at the start of the year, I would have called you crazy. Yeah, that was the key, is Mullis's jump. And I think we talked about this briefly post-race, because you talk about that battle for second. Ottinger and Bussa hold each other up for just a little bit. It was basically that first whole lap of the green, white checkered finish. And coming to the white flag, the advantage out in front of the field for Mullis is like 7-8 car lengths. You get into turn 3 on the last lap, it's like 2. I think it was too far for Matt Bussa to pull the Blake Reynolds and go for the bumper. This is not North Wilkesboro in the trucks. It's a points race, and you can't send it in 3 car lengths. But if Bussa had gotten around Ottinger faster and maybe was within a car length instead of 2 or 3, maybe he puts the bumper to him. But it was a combination of Mullis getting that good jump and the fact that, Bussa and Ottinger just kind of had to deal with each other, that gave him enough of a cushion to get the win, which I found interesting, just kind of looking back at the stats, that over the course of this race, we only saw 2 different drivers lead laps, total 2 different leaders. Of course, Mullis led the most as he went on to get the win. And I would have to double check, but I'm guessing that's probably the least amount of different race leaders we've seen in a race so far this year. So goes to show you how strong Bolin was early. You mentioned, that he kind of fell back to 9th. I thought he was kind of destined to be stuck there. He gets the top 5 out of it, but really just how strong Jimmy Mullis was. It was a point that I had mentioned, I think, the week prior on one of our social media shows with NASCAR on drivers that, I was kind of looking at in the points. It's a big win for Mullis. There is no win in, you're in, but I mean, he jumps 5 in the championship after that, and he now only finds himself about 19 spots out of a playoff spot that's to the bubble where Graham Bolin is. Yeah, that's still a lot. But where he was 4 weeks ago, 4 races ago, I mean, it's been a great turnaround for him. He does, and it's a little bit less so because of the cars, and it's just more so again because of the restart procedure. It's a very unique iRacing thing, in which you don't actually have to wait for a restart box, where you only have kind of so much leeway on what you can do. At New Hampshire, the pace car's gone in the center of 3 and 4, and we saw consistently. I mean, with all the yellows, Mullis had to go through a ton of restarts. We saw consistently, that car's basically taken off in the center of turn 4, and you just can't anticipate that in the corner. You just can't stick with them, and it gives such an advantage to the control car, the way that restarts are done on the service. Yeah, and those guys are all pretty close to one another. It's funny, kind of looking at the points. The biggest gap I think between any two names in like the top 30 is actually the bubble. That kind of 19 or 20 point deficit or distance between Bullen and Mullis is actually one of the bigger gaps we have all throughout the points. Now, with 6 races to go, doesn't really mean much. We talked about that big one. Both Brad Davies and Jake Nichols, I think, were in that incident. They both drop a lot, but they're still in contention. But Graham Bullen has 264 points. He is our bubble driver. I would have to kind of cut things off close to John Gorlinski, if you're asking me, because that's about a 50-point difference. Mathematically, anything's possible. But I think that your top kind of 12 or 13 through Nichols are kind of the drivers that have an actual shot. Through Gorlinski, they kind of have a hope and a prayer. But if you're not top 15 right now, and that includes guys like Busa, who had a great night, gained 7 spots in the points, he's in 19th. You can't keep gaining 7 spots each week. I mean, Boost is in a battle just to stay in the championship. And I think that Zach Novak, I mentioned that it was a bit of a long shot. I just don't see it happening. I think his focus is now on just staying in this series. And there's a lot of names down there like Malik Ray as well, who I would expect to do better. They're all kind of in the mindset now, I think. I just don't see 6 races being enough. And you have to kind of mentally change your expectations to just stay in it. And there's a ton of names there that if we had kind of, guesstimated that they would be in this position this early at the start of the year, I would probably called you crazy. But this is kind of the point in the year where with each passing week, you kind of have to reassess things. And it's been surprising. When we talk about names that are in it, I can't really say I'm shocked by any of them. I know a couple of weeks back, I mentioned that Garrett Lowe had really impressed me, but I don't want to say that he shocked me. Of course, he was one of these championship cars last year. But Nick Ottinger and Graham Bolin, 6th and 8th in points, have really I don't know if surprise is the right word, because I mean all these guys are good. But if I kind of filled out a fantasy top 8 at the start of the year, I don't think I would have had Ottinger or Bolin in there. So good ups to those guys. But I mean, they can't settle down, because we talk about that 19-point difference. That's great. But I mean, you got guys like Jimmy Mullis, Logan Clampett on your heels. I mean, those are 2 guys that have a good a chance as anybody else if they get into those playoffs to win a championship in this series. So it's going to be a ton of fun through the next couple of weeks. And I think we have 4 weeks left with our normal broadcast stuff on Tuesday until stuff gets moved over to NBC. So we're excited for how the rest of this regular season will play out, and of course into the championship when stuff moves over to Thursdays. I think in September. I've always loved Michigan, and Michigan's a track that's been on the calendar, I think, every single season in this championship. So it's got a lot of history, and there's a lot of guys who are kind of in that points, like kind of right on the bubble. So like Ray Alfala, he's 7th in points. He's got to win here. You got guys like Luza, who doesn't really need one. Garrett Lowe doesn't need one, but they're race winners here, and I think it was Garrett who won here last year at Michigan. So it's just a fun track. I mean, even with New Hampshire, a track that I personally don't like, I think a track that a lot of the drivers aren't a big fan of. I think you need those tracks, right? You need tracks that people don't enjoy because that means it's a challenge. I love Michigan. I've always liked the racing there. No, we're not in the 215 miles an hour into turn one era anymore, but Michigan's fun. And, Michigan and Fontana have been two tracks that have given us great races for the last few years. So I think even removed from the nerdy stuff that I like, the points and kind of tracking these trends and all that. If you're not, kind of somebody who tunes in to kind of deep dive into all of that, Michigan's just a good show. And then that'll be followed up by Watkins Glen, which I don't think is getting changed at all. I think, as far as I know, we're sticking with Watkins Glen. That's not getting switched over to Daytona unless nobody has passed me that memo yet. So that'll be two fun tracks back to back with the road course there as well. Because that's kind of guaranteed points for like a Bobby Zelensky and some of those other drivers. Those strong road course ringers. So once we get through the next 2 weeks, I think we'll have a lot clearer of an idea of who's got a real shot here for the playoffs. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys.
All right, guys. So on the dirt side, Monday was round 4 of the Morton Builders World of Outlaw Late Model Series. They were at Eldora Speedway, which is the track that's owned by Tony Stewart, and it's home of the Dirt Derby for the NASCAR Gander outdoor trucks. So you get to see that track in NASCAR once a year, just not this year. But coming into the race today, Hayden Cardwell was the leader in points, and he was looking to have a great night. He put up the fast time in qualifying, was on the pole for Heat 1, and guess what? He had a technical issue, and he missed the start of his heat race. Wound up starting from the pits and finished dead last in his heat race. So what looked like could have been a really big night for Hayden Cardwell to maybe gap the field for points. He's behind behind the 8 ball big time. So Blake Majulis winds up winning that first heat. He is the returning champion from last year. The second heat went to Evan Say, who was actually in 3rd in points. So that means he's going to start that feature on the outside row of row 1. So he's in really good position to make up some points on Hayden Cardwell, who's the leader. Heat 3 was Devin Morgan wins, and Tyler Ducharme wins Heat 4. So that takes us to our first B main, which is the consolation race, where you have to finish in the top 2 positions to make that final feature. Hayden Cardwell, who, again, leader in the points, is starting dead last, and he's got to work his way from 9th to 1st or 2nd to save any kind of points in that race. And he wins the race. He starts in dead last, 10-lap race. He winds up winning it. So he does make the feature. He's going to start 17th in the feature. And when the feature starts, Blake Majulis, who, again, won the first heat race, he goes wire to wire, wins the race without anybody taking over, without any lead changes. It was a 50-lap race, and there was no lead changes. It was pretty uneventful for the win for Blake Majulis. Second place went to Evan Say, who again was 3rd in points coming into the race, and Dylan Hauser finished in 3rd. But really, all the eyes were on how was Hayden Cardwell going to do starting at the back of the field? How many points was he going to give up? Could he make his way up through the field? So he started in 17th place, and he got through some really tense moments where there were some accidents he was just avoided, and wound up coming all the way to 7th place, which is salvages some points for the night for him, but not quite enough to hold on to the series lead, which Evan Shea takes over by 5 points over Dylan Wilson, and Cardwell drops to third, 7 points behind Evan Shea. So the points race is really tightening up. A lot of it due to some bad luck, but that's kind of what makes this series really exciting. Um, I just can't imagine how frustrating it'd be to have some kind of a technical issue at the start of one of these races where so much is on the line. I get upset when I have a technical issue on your standard race, but these guys have a lot on the line, and man, he really made up. He really did a good job saving as many points as he could for that race to stay in contention.
I'm sorry, this will not be made.
Yeah, it was really good. Second place in that B main was actually by the winner of the sprint car series, our good buddy Alex Bergeron. He actually didn't make the feature initially either. He finished second and wound up making the finish for the making the finals. And I think he finished around 10th or 11th, if I'm not mistaken. So yes, and it was just cars were banging on each other. He got a little help when the leaders kind of got to each other to take over the lead in that B main, and he did a great job of really getting moving up and winning that B main. It was very exciting. So the next race is going to be round 5, and it goes back to Lernerville. And Lernerville is a race that Hayden Carwell, who just destroyed the field last time, gapped the field by over 6 seconds. So he's looking to reclaim first place probably next week, barring any more bad luck. Yeah, and Lernerville, if you remember, has no wall on the backside of that track, so people can they can go flying.
Yeah, I've seen a few guys do this stuff, but this, I guess we can call it a company. That's what they specialize in, Bell Photography. We got like a whole website set up just for strictly grabbing shots for iRacing. And well, I guess it's simsnap.com. What the heck is going on? Yeah, so it is Bell Photography that does it. Simsnap.com is the website. Right now, they're offering a 10 photo package for the 24-hour spa for $8, but I believe that's Aussie dollars. But at first, I saw this, I was like, that's kind of weird. And then you start looking through the photos and stuff. These guys do a pretty darn good job. Playing with the backgrounds and stuff, and really making the cars just pop, and yeah.
They're really focused on the motion blur. That's what's making the cars pop so much, is that everything else is intentionally out of focus.
Yep, that's all they require. Just send them the replay of what you're looking to get the shots out of, and they'll basically take care of the rest.
I really love this shirt. It's one of those things where, you could wear that thing out in public every day for months, maybe years, and nobody will get it until that one person does, and it would be a magical moment when they do. I imagine like bro hugs and stuff like that after somebody sees that shirt on you. You know. Absolutely. Yeah, I didn't quite understand.
I wonder if they have a T-shirt that says 0.000. Well, that was a transition that you just glazed right over.
Speaking of 0.000, on Instagram, the iRacing official Instagram website put out a photo of a absolute dead heat in the 87 Monte Carlo cars, a number 4 a Wrangler car, and done in Dale Earnhardt's paint scheme, and a number 8 car are crossing the line at a dead heat 0.000. You could not park these cars any better lined up on the finish line than these cars are. It's amazing. That's a good question. I have no idea. And driving those 87 Monte Carlos, it probably was not as pretty as it looks on the picture coming up to that line either.
Well, the 4 car's bumper is not straight. Yeah, but look at the start finish line.
Yeah,
It's also slanted.
yeah, and the number 4 might have got shortened up a couple of inches during the race.
Speaking of inches, here's another smooth transition for you. One of the things that we change in the garage is how many inches or up or down the car might be. And sometimes there's a lot of clicks you have to do. And this next little item, somebody just dropped a hint. Actually, it was Keegan Leahy dropped the hint that you can shift click in the garage and it'll do 5 clicks at a time instead of 1. Yeah. I didn't either, and that'd be pretty handy. Like when I win and whenever I do a burnout, I'll take my brake bias all the way forward, and try to do the kind of the Jimmy Johnson drift kind of thing where he just kind of burns out and slides forward. And in the LMP, it's about, I don't know, 40 or 50 clicks to get it all the way forward because it goes up at 0.1 at a time. Another few tips and tricks here. You can change the ghost car offset seconds and to make the ghost car appear in front of you. This would be handy, I guess, if you're racing yourself and using the ghost car. But about the only time I use that ghost car now is if I'll put Zelensky's lap in there off of VRS and try to keep up with him and follow his line as I'm learning one of the road courses.
Yeah, especially if you're doing that on the first corner or two. You're usually side by side with your original time, and you're just overlapping the ghost car. You really don't get any good information that way. But being that the car will be ahead of you, you can follow your line or try to change your line slightly and see how it affects what you're doing there. I think that's a great idea.
Drive UIF full screen equals 1 allows you to move your boxes to the side monitors. And then one last little trick, force visible when move. If you set that to 1, you can see all the possible boxes, even when they're something that doesn't show up. This is really handy for like positioning the chat box. Yeah, so thanks to Keegan and the other guys for throwing those little tips and tricks. And we also have another video that gives us a few tips and tricks. Tony's going to tell us about that.
Yeah, Ricky Thompson posted up a little video in the forums, showing a couple of the lesser known features, I guess, of the season 3 build. But I thought one of them was always there, but I could be wrong. And one of them is how to use the new run groups feature in practices, and the other one is how to set the shortcut to turn the master volume up and down. Now, I thought there was always those options to turn to set a hotkey to manipulate the volume, but
there was one for the chat, but there was not one for the master.
Okay, so there you go. I'm just making stuff up.
But the run groups is pretty interesting. I think where that would be most handy is when you wanted to go out and run a queue lap and just get away from all the other drivers. You just jump into one of the run groups by yourself, and then nobody else is on the track with you.
I think the run groups is new to season 3, if I'm not mistaken, where you can actually change the groups and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really cool, and that looks like one of the late models for Boyer's Dirt, and the winner of the World Outlaw Late Model Series is going to test one of those cars as part of his prize package.
What about this?
Yeah, so on Instagram, the official iRacing posted up the video of the last half lap of the Lionheart
Sage
Series
Kara
Indy
behind
Butt
him,
Kicker
getting ready to head to
200,
Indy in
250
real
at
life
Indianapolis,
and race his
it
Indy
was
car.
a
And the defending
fabulous
series
race.
champion Ryan
And
Otis
Sage
looking for
Karam
his biggest win
goes on to win
in
that
Lionheart.
race. He's
They're
like in
3
third
wide into
place
turn
in the
3,
last,
Karam to the middle.
the last half of the lap. And,
Otis going to try to make it
they come
stick.
around the final corner.
And he does
They're
for
drafting
now.
off each other. It's a
Rasmus
group of
defending
at least
low.
6
Here
cars
comes
that are all
Wardlow.
lined in
Malone's going to have the run of a lifetime. It's like the Freedom 100 all over again. Karam to the inside. Here's Malone.
At that finish, and the announcing crew that does it on this video is fantastic as well. It's a really good video. Yeah, that was a really good finish. Great video, great announcing. It's everything iRacing really can be. Yeah, I agree. And my concern again would be how it draws the outer edges of the screen. Whether there's any kind of scaling effects or any issues with that. It's kind of hard to tell in just the pictures I've seen. But yeah, that's my only concern. I think if I was really looking at this monitor, but other than that, it's a beautiful screen. It's amazing to look at. It looks like you're sitting in the front row of a movie theater. It's just really, really good.
Yeah, about the only question is that the FOV, is it going to feel right or not? And he's discussing that in the thread. But I'm sure it's something you could get used to. I don't think I could ever go back to flat monitors.
This one's not flat; it's curved. Boom.
Okay. I guess okay. 2-dimensional monitors then. How about that? You got me though.
Yeah, I'm not seeing. I know, like when we were, we were talking about, these versus triples, and is this warping at the edges and stuff like that? And I'm really trying to look, but I'm not seeing it any warping. But it would be nice to see a picture. A video would be good, but a picture of like a not an open wheel or an open cockpit, a closed cockpit car to feel that might give a little better visual, I guess, for us because we're so used to the oval side. But,
maybe a video, but I don't know unless you're used to triples and then hop on this screen if you're going to perceive it, because it's going to be a change that's almost felt more than seen, I would think.
Adaptive sync that will probably go away. Yep. Interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Of course, that makes sense. Screen monitor, and the more widescreen your monitor is, the more pronounced that effect is. Another thing you'll probably notice is that depending on how well the game supports widescreen, you'll see a different degree of stretching in your peripheral vision. We might be able to help with that a little bit by changing the FOV in the game. We're not even managing to sustain 240.
Yeah, I saw that video too. You're right, and the corners did look really good on that. I imagine iRacing has the technology to reproduce that kind of rendering on that screen.
But you can tell that there's distortion on the outsides. If you when he rotates, it doesn't look the same. The motion on the outside doesn't look the same as it does in the middle.
Just like the G7, I'm really impressed with
yeah.
the color settings.
It feels like a fisheye effect almost.
Yeah, and I guess there's a question of whether your peripheral vision will pick up that distortion. You know, if you're really concentrated mostly on the center of the screen, you know, it might not be that big a deal. There's a product a little bit further down the list that might address one of those situations.
1000, but also compared to competition, because like I said, this isn't the only half of 5K gaming monitor on the market. It's just the only one that is Display HDR 1000 certified. There's a slight flicker at 240
Yes.
HDR.
And speaking of beasts, we have a from Barry Rowland from the Sim Racing Garage. He posted on Instagram a picture of these pedals. They are Wave Italy.
Of course,
They're it's called the Impetus Imola pedal set, and it looks like you could drive a tank over it and it would be pretty much okay. It's they're all three all inverted pedals. The brake clutch and gas pedal, they're all inverted on a solid steel frame. I read a little bit about this. This is all cut from 3D printed out basically out of steel, and it looks like a beast. It really looks sturdy. And it looks stiff. And if you take a look at where the connection point is between the top half and the bottom half, there's a set of screw holes and stuff that look like you can tilt the pedals more to get you a little bit more versatility. And you can raise and lower the pedals with the set of holes on the top side. So that whole thing looks very adjustable as well.
Yeah, the only way that you could make it more adjustable would be to have a single slit that's curved. That's the way a lot of rigs come. So you're limited with it's. I guess instead of infinite choices, you have a set number of choices. But those are still probably maybe a third or a quarter of an inch adjustments.
Well, I mean, you can adjust those like for a lack of a better term, I'm going to call it the pedal plate. What all the pedals actually connect to. That connect to the framing of this, you can adjust those many different ways. Plus, the whole top part of that unit looks like there's some adjustment. So you could hit just about any angle that you would ever want to be able to drive. But the big thing here is like, you were talking about getting this thing run over by a tank. And like the pedal arms on these, those are some thick ass pieces of metal. Like there's absolutely solid, like you've already said, but the thickness is just it's kind of blowing me away a little bit. No, to God, no, nuh-uh.
It just it actually just looks like the pedals you would have in an actual car as well, instead of a little bit too small. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's probably got bolting down on the bottom piece there.
Yeah, it looks like on that flange on the bottom, there's some holes pre-drilled for it. I guess if you're doing like an 80/20 and you have the tubes going across it, you could probably secure it to that.
Yeah, I think you'd have a hard time like a pre-built kind of like your Abuto. You might have a hard time mounting these. Yeah, but with an 80/20 type setup, this wouldn't be an issue at all. Yeah, but like you said, you just kind of build around it, and it's got some really nice design work with the 3D printed part, or the 3D the plasma cutter on the side, show off their the graphics and stuff like that. So you can build it, make it look really nice. Wouldn't be too hard, but yeah, you wouldn't be in any shape for these.
Space might be an issue because it looks like it's about tall enough to come up almost as high as the direct drive, so it would have to be further back than where the direct drive drive is when it's sitting up in an 80/20 rig, and so how high are your monitors, and where is your monitor stand sitting as well. And I'm trying to figure out what the Motley Crue reference is. Oh, it's on the wall. Okay.
Vince
Chat.
Neil, come on, man.
There we go. Shame on me. I'm just looking at the pictures. I didn't pay attention who it was for. Yeah. So this one is for Vince Neil.
Looks like Vince Neil. Looks like he's a road racer from the setup there. He's got a Fanatec V2 Formula wheel.
I'm actually looking at his Twitter as well, and he's liking a lot of iRacing posts on here. Like his most. Yeah, that makes a whole lot more sense now. It's a solid steel cutout frame. It's got a curved monitor, direct drive wheel. That's the Formula V2 rim. MPI, yeah. And those are similar to Derek Spears' design boxes that are directly mounted to the base, the button boxes. I have a CD sitting next to mine, a little CDR.
He's got some racing photos on the wall too. Looks like a funny car maybe. Maybe the guy from Old Bastards who's the keyboardist would have his number. Yeah, exactly.
So can this next seat be used by rock stars, Tony?
Could be used by rock stars. Could be used by grandpas trying to show up their grandsons. It could be used by just about everyone. And this one's actually really cool. It's the Corbeau Evo RB reclining bucket seat, which is, in my opinion, a very nice added touch to be able to recline that some. Man, sometimes when you're just sitting straight up, you just gotta relax, man. You got NIS bottom split. You got 17,000 cautions. Right around caution 25. You got to recline that thing a bit and take a load off. Yeah, I think it's a great option, but like you said, it looks comfortable, and I don't know. I think that's what it's all about. There, you gotta be comfortable.
You could get one of those and bring it up with a little footrest and have you a nice actual living room recliner.
It looks fairly sturdy. The where the pedals go looks like almost a piece of 80/20 aluminum there for the adjustments.
I don't know. I don't know. I got a thumbs down this one. It's just extremely underwhelming to me. It's I don't want to say it's like cookie cutter, but it's like I don't know even know if you really want to call it budget. I mean, okay, so the part that like I was like, okay, I looked at it and there's really nothing there that kind of stood out to me as like, oh, this is kind of neat. But then I saw the wheel deck, and they have, it looks about 15 degrees either way of adjustment. But if you look at how that is built, it is just a pile of hot garbage. You put anything, like it looks like if you put any kind of weight on your steering wheel, that thing is going to fall out of adjustment in about 3 months' time. It's just going to wear out those little tiny nubs. And to me, that is just an epic fail. You can't have that kind of. It's just, I don't know. It just seems extremely cheap. It looks, like they're trying to go kind of fancy, but that one picture of the wheel deck, thumbs down for me, man. Yeah. Is that like one of the cheap play seats, like the cheapest play seat option that they have? Yeah, but that thing's like $150. I think so. I mean, I guess it's a good try. Maybe they fix that wheel deck. I might be able to say something a little better, but yeah, that's kind of nicks it for me.
And another thing is, you're really going to need to find a monitor solution for that as well. I mean, unless you're doing VR, what do you do with your monitors? Yeah, if you want to go one that's not cookie cutter at all, there's a company called the Frenchie Company. They have put out an adjustable cockpit, I guess. This thing is the weirdest thing I've seen in a while. It looks like just a flat folding piece of wood that's, I guess it's padded, that can create certain angles for you to sit at. It advertises that you can run in a GT style or a Formula style where you just fold it certain ways and your legs kick up higher, or you can recline it back further to get different sitting positions. It's a very unusual thing. It almost reminds me like of a yoga mat that folds up. Exactly. Exactly. And then there's a center post for your wheelbase. Looks somewhat sturdy. They have a they have a they have a direct drive wheel on there, and I hope it stands up to that kind of pressures. But yeah, it's a very unusual set. It's not super expensive, but there's really not a whole lot to it either.
Yeah, I can pick it apart pretty quickly. It's kind of like a lot of the play seats. That post in the middle is not very good for three pedal driving. It interferes with being able to use the pedals. And also, what if you want to mount a shifter or extra button boxes, keyboard, mouse?
Oh yeah, you're rolling off the floor, rolling around on the ground to get up from that thing.
Yeah, this almost looks like a good portable option to me.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's a concept at best. I was trying to stay out of this one because I kind of have the same feelings as the last one we just looked at. Maybe just roll off this thing and throw it right in the garbage.
Tony bringing the heat today.
Next up, we have a new Track IR. The 5 is out. And I haven't read up on the details. I know Greg was using Track IR for a while with a single monitor. He's since moved on up to work with VR. So it's available. It comes with a track clip, as well as it looks like a little clip that attaches to the top of your monitor. So if you're interested in Track R, here's a link.
I've never tried it either. I know Greg said it worked really well for him, and it's really popular in the flight simulator groups. And
That's what. Good. I'm sorry. That's what I was going to say. It seemed like it would be a great product for flight sims, where you can really look around the cockpit of a vehicle and really get that experience.
Yeah, one of the biggest issues, and I don't know if it was dealt with in this version or not. One of our old teammates had glasses, and it just did not work well with the glasses.
I'm not sure about the older versions. This version, the sensor either clips onto the earpiece of a headset, or if you don't use a headset, it will fit on the rim of a baseball cap, and that's the sensors that this thing's looking for. So I don't know if glasses would make a difference on that, but I haven't tried any experience with this at all.
It's probably using infrared light, so if those glasses are bouncing in the infrared light, it could confuse them.
Okay, that makes sense.
apparently we got something epic coming from Track Racer. They posted up a picture on Instagram. I'm not 100% sure as to what I'm looking at because they don't give any description, but it's a box at the end of a rig. It looks like it might be the whole. I don't even know. Like, is the whole pedals or? Did I miss something? Well, no, sorry, David. At the bottom of this picture, there's it's like a black powder coat that this whole thing is colored in, but there's a silver ring along one of the bottom legs, and I see some holes just to the left of that silver ring. So it looks like there's some like adjustability to be able to adjust the length of this thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't see why that would be where the pedals are sitting because it looks like it's kind of almost free floating. Does it look like that's actually going to sit on the ground? And that pedal plate doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Why is there all that extra space underneath it?
They're coming out with a foot kicker, and that's where you put it.
what? So,
Yeah, I watched that video, and Barry went into some details how it looks like they've cut some costs on that thing, and he goes into that detail pretty good. But yeah, it's an entry level 6 degree of freedom type of system would be my summary. Well, Will Gibson sent in a rig review, and I'll try to describe what I see here because I'm not sure what we're supposed to be looking at. But it's an office chair. You know, it's got your rollers on it, like you want to roll around the room. It's got a Fanatec pedals. I think they're the Club Sport pedals, and it's got a screen strap that goes from the base of the chair to the pedals. And I'm assuming that's to keep the pedals from sliding forward as you're racing with it. That'd be my guess.
Yeah, that's definitely to keep the seat from rolling.
I gotcha. So it's a stabilizer.
It's still not as impressive as the bungee cord for the pedals.
Yeah, I used Crocs underneath the wheels of my office chair when I was in an office chair. Using a strap, maybe I could have probably strapped myself to my desk or something. That would have worked. But yeah, I mean, everybody's got some of these laying around. Why not? It works, and that's one of those fold up, roll up to the couch wheel stands that he's got rocking.
Yeah, I love these homemade solutions to problems. They're great to see.
Well, this next one's not homemade, but I'm looking through the website and I'm almost lost with the choices. Yeah, it's a French company, but the site's well done in English. All kinds of different options. They've got flight-specific rigs. They've got racing-specific motion or D-box rigs. They've got do-it-yourself, design-it-yourself options. I'd love to see. I'd like to get Bobby to check this site out because he's been designing his own rig, so it'd be pretty neat. A lot of neat options on here. Yeah, the mounting for the Drive is a little bit different than the SimLab design. At least the one I've got. It doesn't look as like there's as much profile there. It's a little bit smaller. It's only two wide instead of 3 wide, basically. And it's top mount or bottom mount instead of side mount, as far as I can tell. And if you're one of those guys that's like in the market right now, who knows? They may have a little bit more availability. I know everybody's is in a pinch as far as the production times, but at the top they say our preparation times are usually running 7 to 15 days, depending on orders. And that's a fairly recent update, I think. It took me longer. It took me longer to get my rig.
Well, we continue on our travel around the world with these different companies. The next up is IMSIM, IMSIM.eu.com. And they are another company that will rent out their rigs and stuff. They got, looks like they, from what I can read anyways, that they've got like their own software that they run on this stuff. It's all proprietary to what for their rigs, and but it looks like they offer 3 DOF motion rigs, and you know it's that whole rental experience.
Yeah, they look like they have low frequency emitters as well on the back for some extra vibration. Yeah, I know somebody else who pre-ordered it. This guy. Yes, sir. I pre-ordered it a couple weeks ago. Can't wait for it to come in. It's due in the fall. I have the G1 HP Reverb, the first generation VR headset, and this one is supposed to be, pretty good as far as the upgrades that it's made. As far as sound goes, it uses the speakers that come with the best system out there. It's the optics are supposed to be greatly increased too. So yeah, it's supposed to be really good. I'm happy with my G1, but I can also see where there's can be some improvements, and I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, that's Sebastian Ong's YouTube channel. He does a MRTV, which is a mixed reality review website, and I've watched quite a few of his videos, and he gives a really good review. He's got a prototype for it. It doesn't quite have everything that the new one has as far as software updates and stuff, but even the prototype, he said, is just fantastic. He recommends it over the Valve Index, which I guess would be the next best commercially available VR headset. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's $5.99, which basically was the same price as the last one before. It's compared to the Valve Index, which would probably be the next best competitor, which runs about $1,000. So this next review is this guy is basically modeling a whole office with the sim rig in it, TV monitor, and everything, in a scale of probably about 2 inches for the whole rig. And the detail on it is unbelievable. It's fantastic. He's even got a cell phone on one of the desks, and he's using a pair of tweezers to manipulate some of these parts, and it's unbelievable. It's great craftsmanship and artwork.
This if you have a wife that likes to collect dollhouses, you just say, "Hey, look, this has to go in it."
I need my rig room. It's amazing. The trash can has trash in it. It's fantastic. It's amazing work. I love this kind of stuff.
Yeah, you got the wires coming off the wheel and everything, and there's some pretty crappy cable management, so that would cover probably about 80 or 85% of us. It's cool. Like you said, the attention to detail is great.
So does
Oh boy, what a weekend it was! Let me tell you. Got a little bit of movement, and I'm gonna have to. I'm a little biased about this, but the most important movement is I have officially moved into the first place spot. Yeah. I had what can I say? My day was up and down. I keep playing Kyle Busch, thinking he might get something done. I don't know. Maybe he's, doing his impression of Jimmy Johnson this year. But hey, he's burned me a few times, so I gotta hope that he's gonna, come around here sometime. But he that one hurt, but when the dust settled at the end of the race, it actually worked out pretty good for me. With Cole passing everybody on the outside, I didn't have him in my lineup, but because of him winning, it was able to get me some more points, get me ahead of just in time. But not too much of a real shakeup with the top 10, but it is an absolute tight race right now. Like, there is only 400 points from first to 10th, and 2 races, and that 10th person can be right in the top spot. It really can happen, just that fast. But let's just do a quick rundown. Myself's in first, obviously. Justin Time, he's in second. Now we're talking 8-point difference right now. It's it is not much at all. Jedi McFly, that's Mr. Scales, he's in third. G.I. Jojo, Smiling Ninja is 5th place, followed by Laird Racing. Romance Girl, KBM 54, Res Dog, and Carrie C. Y'all. It rounds out the top 10. Mike, you're hanging tough there in 12th place. You've been there for the last few weeks. Good that you're not falling down the list, but maybe you're not taking advantage of your garage in those opportune times when you could. No, and that's good. Hey, that's half the battle right there. Just getting those picks in will keep those numbers rolling for you. And I see Tony Rochette. He's slowly making his way up. I think he ended up missing a bunch of races, but he's slowly making his way up. But there's, he's still got time. There's still lots of racing left this season, but the top 10 is absolutely just on fire right now. It's so interesting. And if you follow the live standings throughout the race, you can watch everybody, kind of move up and down, and it's based on that race, not the overall standings, but man, you go from stage 1 to, with 20 to go, and somebody that was leading could be just right at the bottom of the list, and it makes watching those races just even that much more exciting. Well, especially when you get kind of a race like we had on Sunday. It was a bit of a snooze fest, except for the last couple of laps. That was pretty good. So being able to keep track of the fantasy while you're going through there kind of keeps those eyes open for those boring laps.
Yep, this one went okay. I don't remember if I was top split on this one or not. I don't think I was. There was a caution right in the middle of green flag pits, though, that trapped me a lap down. I had to take the wave around in a race around a whole lot of people and was only able to climb back up to about 10th. I was running probably 5th or 6th before that, but it was still a good run. Yeah, I've got a post on it on the forums that I'd like for. Uh, I'll talk about that in final thoughts. But yeah, there's a post on, and it's just running an extra lap that it did not run before. And we've said before, we're starting to beat a dead horse now because we said before they made Pocono great, but then they made all the other tracks take forever because we're sitting there for 4 laps when if it was an early caution, it used to only be 2 laps if there was no lap car and 3 laps if there was a lap car. But now, if that green comes out or if the yellow comes out on lap 2, you're sitting burning up another 4 laps, and it's definitely slowing down the amount of times that the races are having to take. It's great if you're damaged because you can get a whole lot more damage. Before, you basically could only do one extended pit stop and maybe come in and get tires the last time around. Now you can do 2 complete pit stops where you get to wait for the whole field to drive all the way around. So, I mean, if that's, I don't think they've done it that way on purpose. So, especially after taking away a lap from places like Pocono and Indy. Yep, caution free, and so I was 13th place car. Yeah, I got caught up in one first that happened just in front of me, and the guy came down and I almost dodged him and hit him with the side of my car. And that actually took a little bit of horsepower, but I was already irritated with the set. We were top split, and the set was just, I guess, too tight. I thought I had loosened it up, but No. In once I actually got to run a long green flag run, I was almost lapped at the beginning of the race, and so I was just frustrated. Then we're at the end situation. I'm up a little bit. I didn't take the last set of tires, and a guy locks his brakes up, hits me, and is immediately apologetic. He's apologized for me 3 times, and you know how it is. If we all make mistakes, and when somebody comes out and says, "Yeah, I screwed up," it's usually over for me, and that's the case here because he's a habitually clean driver, and we all have mistakes. It's not we've got some names that we know are constantly causing problems, but he wasn't one of those guys. So I was more upset most of the night because of how bad the set was driving.
All right, Thursday.
It was loose for you. It felt fine to me. I got loose once. Set was great. I got taken out though by a dude. This was a really low strength of field top split. In fact, this guy that took me out has a D license, a D499 license. I don't know if he's new to the series or not, but we're on a restart and he's on the outside lane and he just turns down really early, and I'm a late apexer, and he takes me out and blames me. So I had everybody, including somebody that's basically one of the most respected top split NIS drivers, look at the replay and say, no, it was on him. So not too worried about it, but it sucked because I was running top 5 in a top split. Yeah, it held up because it wasn't murdering the right front like it was last night. Yep, it's the higher horsepower package, so you cannot stomp the throttle, or you'll go around. Yep, yep. Couple of tracks that I run a little bit better at. In the Daytona, I did get a favorable split. I was the top ranked car, and in road racing, I have the cautions to shuffle things up. Sometimes the I rating is a pretty good predictor, and I got on the pole and never got passed.
Well, it's good to be back from vacation. I haven't raced in over a week now. I'm super itching. Um, the first couple days after vacation have been nothing but trying to catch up with stuff. So I've been so busy, I haven't been able to get on. But I'll be back on racing this week. At the end of the week, we'll try New Hampshire out for me. I have got my Twitches set up. It's going to be McRubbins Racing. That's MacRubbins RACIN. That's where I'll be posting my Twitch stuff at, and so I'm looking forward to getting that up.
So that's with 2 B's.
2 B's and 2 R's.
1X. No, I got more, but I had to have the. They're not even going to hear the dramatic pause because it's going to get pulled out in the editing. I may go back and put that in because I'm also the guy that's been doing the sound editing recently, and so I did want to toot my horn a little bit on that. If you notice, we have a new theme song, and didn't have to worry about copyright or anything because I wrote it and performed it. I had a friend actually cover the guitar parts, but that's me on the drums. So that's our new theme song. I wanted to toot my horn on that. And also, I do have a forum post up about the cautions. Go bump it. Say, yeah, this is a problem. Just get their attention. Their attention's being pulled in 500 directions. So usually the squeaky wheel is the one that gets the oil.
I'm just going to plug the Aftermath show. We definitely this weekend, probably for the considerable future, I guess, if you could say. We're going to have to move our recording date. Normally it's on Fridays, every other Friday. But it looks like we're gonna have to bump that a day to accommodate Chris's new job. He's working afternoons right now, so we just can't make that work. So we'll be recording on Saturdays. Hopefully that's going to be our day. That's not set in stone yet, but that's what's going to happen this week. And if that goes well and it works for Chris and Tony, we'll keep it at Saturdays for the time being. But yeah, things been good. People are listening to it, so that's good. Love to hear some feedback. So hit us up on the iRacers Lounge podcast Facebook page and give us some feedback, good, bad, or otherwise. We'll take it all.
Well, I definitely enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it was all about, eh? The three of us always, spend a lot of time just on TeamSpeak and stuff during races, just chewing the fat, and that's all we're doing. It's just a few guys kind of sitting around, drinking beer and slinging mud at each other. Very rarely can we ever, stick to a topic. We're constantly going in every direction, and it's been a lot of fun.